Here are the best blonde jokes of the year. Let's start with number 11. The new girl in town was a former beauty queen, and she was as blonde as she was beautiful. Well, she soon got a job at the local grocery store. Word got out, and before long, all the guys in town made their way into the store to shop, but mostly just to stare at her. They would always request something from the top shelf, so she'd have to climb the ladder and they'd crane their necks to get a better view. She was not too bright when it came to common sense and had no idea why everybody wanted something from the top shelf. She tried rearranging the store, but no matter what she tried, all the guys wanted something from the top shelf and she had to make her way back up the ladder. Well, finally, she decided to put the raisin bread on the top shelf. No one likes raisin bread, she said to herself. Well, later that day, guy after guy came in and ordered raisin bread. Well, she made her way up the ladder, and while she was up there, an old man walked into the store, and thinking she could save herself a trip up and down the ladder, she said, "Excuse me, sir, but while I'm up here, is yours raisin too?" "Nope," he said, "but it's a twitching a little." Number 10. A blonde woman decides to start a handyman service to make some extra money. She walks around a rich neighborhood and walks up to the first house. Well, the man answers the door and asks if there's anything that she can do. Well, he tells her the porch needs to be painted. How much would that cost? Well, she says, how about $50? Well, he agrees and she gets to work. Well, when the man goes back into his house, his wife asks him, does she know that the porch wraps around the house? Well, he tells her she has to. She saw it. Well, about an hour later, she comes back to the door to collect her money, and she says, I had some extra paint, so I put on 2 coats. Well, the man's very impressed and gives her the money. Well, she thanks him and says, oh, and by the way, it's a BMW, not a porch. Number 9. The lion trainer had just quit without notice, and the circus manager needed somebody to replace him for the next night's show. So he put an ad in the local paper, and the next morning 2 applicants showed up outside his office. One was a pretty regular-looking guy, and the other one was a beautiful blonde. Neither one of them looked much like a lion tamer, but the manager was pretty desperate. All right, he says, here's a whip and a chair. Let's see you get in that cage and see what you can do. But remember, he's a pretty mean one. So the lady walked right past the whip and the chair and walked right into the cage. Well, the lion rose up and snarled, then came charging across the cage right at her with a big roar. Well, the lion was just about upon her, and the girl threw open her coat, and underneath was wearing nothing. Well, the lion came to a stop and crawled the rest of the way on his belly. He nuzzled the girl's feet with his nose and purred and licked at her ankles. While the astonished circus manager grinned happily, he turned to the other guy and says, well, young fella, you think you can top that? Well, the young guy says, yeah, just get that stupid lion out of there. Number 8. A blonde woman gets on an airplane and sits down in the first class section, and a stewardess rushes right over to her and tells her she's got to move back to coach because, well, she doesn't have a first class ticket. The blonde says, listen, I'm blonde, I'm smart, I have a good job, and I'm staying in first class until we get to Jamaica. Well, the stewardess gets to the head stewardess, and she walks over and asks the blonde to leave. The blonde says again, I'm blonde, I'm smart, I got a good job, I'm staying in first class till we get to Jamaica. Well, the head stewardess doesn't even know what to do at this point, and they still got to get the rest of the passengers seated to take off. She's causing a problem for everybody. So the stewardess goes up to the pilot, and the pilot comes back to the blonde and whispers something in her ear. Well, she immediately gets up and goes to her seat in the coach section. Well, the head stewardess asks the co-pilot in amazement, what did he say to her to get her to move to the correct seat? Co-pilot says, Well, he just told her the front half of the plane wasn't going to Jamaica. Number 7. There was a young blonde lady who was engaged to be married, and her mother set her down for a talk. She was pretty old fashioned and wanted to give her daughter some advice that her mother had given her. So the mother says, "First, my dear, you should never go to bed angry with each other. Also, you should be sure to compromise with him. But most importantly, you should never let him see you not wearing any clothes. You should always be wearing something. Keep some mystery in the relationship." Well, a few weeks after the wedding, the newlyweds were getting ready for bed when her husband asked, "Dear, has there ever been any signs of insanity in your family?" "Well, no," she said. "Not that I know of." "Why do you ask?" "Well, we've been married 2 weeks now, and every night you've worn only that stocking cap to bed." Number 6. There was a beautiful blonde woman driving her car across country in the summer. The trip was hot and dusty, but she spotted a small pond just off the road and decided to hop in for a swim. So she hopped out of her clothes and jumped in and had been enjoying the cool water for a couple of minutes when all of a sudden she noticed a couple of farmers watching her from behind some bushes. Well, her clothes were all the way at the other side of the pond, and there was an old wash tub stuck in the sand near her. So, holding that in front of her, she marched out of the water and walked right towards the farmers. "Don't you two old idiots have anything better to do than to just look at me? Do you know what I think?" she said. "Well, yes, ma'am," said one of the men. "I do believe I know exactly what you think. You think there's a bottom in that wash tub." Number 5. There was a blonde woman who was pretty embarrassed. She had absolutely no idea on earth where her underpants went. She checked the laundry and the dresser and even checked under the bed, but no matter how hard she looked, she couldn't seem to find them. Her friend said, "When I lose something, I always find it best to just retrace my steps." Well, with that advice, the blonde thought about the last few days and remembered her recent checkup. So she called the office and said, "Hey, Doc, I was in there the other day for the checkup. Did I happen to leave my underpants laying around?" Well, he looked around the office and said, "Sorry, dear, they're not here." "All right, thanks," said the blonde. "I guess I'll try the dentist's office." Number 4. There was a blonde lady who was on a first date with a guy. Well, the guy really wanted to impress her, so he took her to a nice restaurant. After dinner, he said he could take her up in his private plane. So they went flying in his two-seater airplane, and all of a sudden, he has a heart attack and dies right there. Well, she's scared out of her mind and starts calling, "Mayday, Mayday, help me, help me. The pilot had a heart attack, he's dead. I don't know how to fly. Help me, please." Well, all of a sudden, she hears a voice over the radio saying, "Well, this is the tower. I got your message. We'll talk you through it, hon. I've got a lot of experience with every kind of problem. Now just relax. Everything's gonna be fine. Now give me your height and your position." She says, "Well, I'm 5'4" and I'm in the front seat." "Okay," the voice says from the tower. "Repeat after me. Our Father, who art in heaven." Number 3. Two beautiful blondes meet in heaven. One of the blondes says to the other, "Well, how'd you die?" And she says, "I froze to death." "Well, that's awful," said the first blonde. "How does it feel to freeze to death?" "Oh, it's very uncomfortable at first," she says. "You get shakes and you get pains all in your fingers and your toes. But eventually, it's very calm way to go. You get kind of numb and you just drift off as if you're sleeping." "Well, how about you? How'd you die?" She says, "Oh, I was running around the house and I just collapsed. You see, I knew my husband was cheating on me, so one day I showed up at home unexpectedly and I ran up to the bedroom and found him alone watching TV. So I ran to the basement, but nobody was hiding there. I ran up to the second floor, and nobody was there either. So I ran just as fast as I could all the way up to the attic. And just when I got there, I collapsed. Second blonde shakes her head. Oh, that's terrible. You know, if you only would have looked in the freezer, we'd both still be alive. Number 2. There was a blonde lady who was walking down a country road out enjoying nature. Well, she had just left her favorite swimming hole and was enjoying her music on the headphones. She really wasn't paying much attention to her surroundings, and as she approached a curve in the road, a car came barreling around the corner. Well, she tried to get out of the way, but the vehicle clipped her and she flew off into a ditch. The young guy, clearly scared, jumped out of the car and ran to her aid. "Oh my God, ma'am, are you all right?" "Oh," she said, "I'm not sure. Everything's pretty blurry. I can't see very well at all." "Oh no," said the guy. "All right, let's try this. How many fingers have I got up?" "Ah," the woman said, "it's worse than I thought. I must be paralyzed from the waist down. I can't feel any of them." Number 1. Well, there was a blonde city girl, and she married a farmer. Well, one morning on the farm, he was on his way out to the fields, and the farmer says to her, "Hey, hon, the cow breeding man is coming over to impregnate one of our cows today. I drove a nail into the 2x4 just above the cow's stall in the barn. You show him which cow it is when he gets here, okay?" So the farmer leaves for the fields. Well, after a while, the cow breeding man knocks on the door, and she takes him down to the barn. Well, they walk along the rows of cows, and when she sees the nail, she tells him, "This is the one, this one right here." Well, terribly impressed by what he thought was just a ditzy blonde, the guy says, "How did you know that this is the cow to be bred?" "Well, that's simple. By the nail over the stall." The man says, What's the nail for?" "I don't know, buddy. I guess it's to hang your pants on. Good luck." Which one of these jokes was your favorite? Did I miss any? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks.